The government's welfare reform is designed to make the benefit system less complex and to make it pay for people to go to work. But there are fears that the most vulnerable people will suffer under the reforms, not least children, who evidently have no control over their economic position. The Children's Commission is urging the Executive to make special provision to protect children. With me are the Commissioner, Patricia Lewsley, and the Social Development Minister, Nelson McCausland. You're very welcome to Hearts and Minds. Commissioner, the Minister is accusing you of ignoring the positive aspects of reform and making up figures on child poverty. For example, your report, a recent report, talks about the reforms hitting 6,500 children. The benefit, you've just made that up.
Well, I think it's important to note that this report, while the Minister will admit that there's a broad range of issues with regard to the welfare reform, this report has been as comprehensive as it possibly can. And the issue for us was we went to the department and we asked for the data that they had. And as a result of that, the Minister's department told us that there were 1,300 families with 5 children or more who will be affected by this benefit cap. So that's where you get the 6,500, which in fact it could actually be more than that because some families have more than 5 children.
Oh, so they're not making it up.
Well, it's quite clear if you look at the report, there is no inclusion of data, of tables, of figures, of explanation. It simply makes clear claims which we believe are unfounded. The truth of the matter is that under welfare reform, and particularly the core element of universal credit, 10,000 children in Northern Ireland will be taken out of poverty. Now, those are the figures that we've got from the Department for Work and Pensions in London. They say it will be, in Northern Ireland, 10,000 children taken out of poverty. That's an important aspect of the figures, and it is not mentioned really in the report.
Do you accept that?
Well, that is all dependent on whether the parents get a job. And the issue is, when we hear earlier on this week, Noel, that we've now hit a double dip recession, that the opportunity for many of those persons to actually get employment is going to be much more difficult. But the statistics that we have given and these numbers have come from the information that we got from the department.
I mean, where do you get 10,000 from, for example? Is that just an aspirational figure, as many government figures are?
No, indeed. There is a modelling system that the Department for Work and Pensions has developed, which enables you to calculate what the impact of certain changes will be within welfare reform. And when you apply that to Northern Ireland, that's the figure that emerges. There are good elements in welfare reform. There are less positive elements. There are elements that we have problems with. But what we need to do is look at the thing in totality. This report, I think, is partial, it's flawed, it doesn't have a strong basis. And if we're going to have the debate about welfare reform and the conversation about welfare reform over the next number of months, then it's important that it's based on facts and figures that we can stand over. Yeah. We're keen to engage with a wide range of stakeholders. We're already doing that through our stakeholder forum and through other measures that the department is taking forward. We've got the executive subcommittee on welfare reform, and the suggestion that children have not been visible in those conversations is simply nonsense.
Well, are you saying not visible or not visible enough?
Well, I'm saying they haven't been visible. I mean, we wrote to the Minister late last year asking him had he taken children into consideration under his equality impact assessment. He wrote back and said no, because he didn't. The department didn't have the data. We then said to the Minister, we will do this piece of research that will help you. So what we were trying to find out was, where were the gaps, where were the critical issues that would actually impact on these children that we're talking about tonight. And he welcomed that. He's seen the reports before they were published. We've asked for a meeting with the Minister, which we will have, and we will discuss this further. I would not be doing my job properly if I wasn't speaking up for children and young people in Northern Ireland and identifying critical areas that I believe the Minister and the Executive and the Committee on Social Development don't take into consideration.
I want to come back on a couple of things there. At the present time, we're still negotiating with the Department for Work and Pensions and with Treasury around a number of these issues. For example, until we get the final figures from Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs, it will be impossible to work out the total impact in Northern Ireland of welfare reform. So the issue around the 6,500, again, I don't see the basis for that. There's no explanation as to where it comes from in the report, as I've seen it. We only received the report a couple of days ago. My officials are going through it. Whatever there is in there that is helpful, we will certainly take out of it. But I think that some of the comments around the word horror that were used in the press release by the Commissioner, I think that that is alarmist, unhelpful, and creates concerns that don't contribute to a constructive discussion.
So you're accusing the Children's Commissioner of being alarmist?
You can put it that way, indeed.
Well, when I have met the parents who are on benefits, who are alarmed at the prospect of what's going to happen to them with the cuts in this, in these benefits, when I've met the parents who are actually working, who are low incomes, and the impact that these cuts are going to have on their families, then I don't believe that I am alarmist. And I have to say that I was myself alarmed this afternoon at the seminar that we had to launch these two reports, that in fact we have food banks set up across community and voluntary organisations in Belfast that are actually giving out, as we talk, food parcels to families.
What do you want the Minister or the Executive to do that it is not going to do?
What I would like to see is the bill, as the Minister, and I welcome that the bill is now going to go through the House and it's going to go to the committee and it's going to go through the scrutiny, and that you use some of the information or all of the information that we've given you in this report.
But specifically, what should the Executive be doing? What must it do in your view?
They must ensure they protect the most vulnerable within our society.
Oh yes, but how? Give me some concrete examples.
To ensure that this doesn't impact any worse than it will already do on the young people and the children that we know that this is going to happen to.
Well, with all respect, Patricia, those comments are simply vacuous. They are simply vacuous. The Executive Subcommittee is working very closely with our officials in the Social Security Agency, with the Department for Work and Pensions and others, to make sure that we bring forward the maximum possible flexibilities to mitigate against any detrimental effects that there will be in Northern Ireland. And could I say also, I was amazed this morning to hear the question being raised about whether this would be taken forward by accelerated passage or given full scrutiny. We've already announced that it will be taken forward by full scrutiny, which I think shows how the Commission is out of touch with the facts on this issue.
So you're not just alarmist, you're also out of touch?
I welcome the fact that that has now been made public.
Well, it was actually made public quite some time ago.
And I welcome the fact that that's going to happen. And what we're saying is, or I'm saying, is that we want you to take some of the issues that we've raised in these reports and consider them, which you've already agreed that you will, and you've welcomed them.
The question is not raising issues. The question is how you find solutions. And what I find missing in this are realistic solutions.
Well, here's a couple of specific points. It says that you should be working with mortgage lenders to help people with housing benefit reductions if they have to move to a cheaper area, for example. You should be dealing directly with mortgage lenders. That you should be working to bring down the cost of rents from private landlords. Is that something you're going to do? And
the bringing down of rents will in fact be one possibly of the effects of some of those changes. But it is impossible, unless you live in some sort of mad dictatorship, to actually go in and say to particular landlords, you're going to charge this rent, that rent or the other. There are a number of the suggestions that are in the report which are actually impossible because they are matters that are reserved matters for Westminster, for example, HMRC issues. There are other suggestions in there which we're already doing. So I've disappointed by the report. It was an opportunity that I think those who prepared the report have missed out on. How far are you prepared to go? We're supposed to have parity with other areas of the United Kingdom, but there is a thing called stretched parity where you can differ in some way if you have specific circumstances. Well, to what extent do you think you're going to be able to do that to protect children? We've asked all of the political parties in the Executive through the subcommittee to bring forward suggestions of areas where there might be flexibility. Now, that will not be any breach of parity. What it will be is operational flexibility. But we've identified 4 or 5 areas there. They've been talked about already in regards to single payments, direct payments to landlords as opposed to payments to the individual, the issues around monthly payments and so on. Those are issues that we've identified. I've discussed those in detail with Ian Duncan-Smith. We've talked about them with David Freud, with the officials at Westminster. All those things are being worked on already. But some of the ideas, quite frankly, in this report, I think your party voted in the Commons against excluding child benefit from the benefit cap. Is that something which is going to help children? Well, the benefit cap is £26,000. It's if you take that as a gross pay, that's roughly £35,000, which is in many ways a reasonable income. There are many folk who are out working full-time in Northern Ireland, earning a lot less. The average wage in Northern Ireland is 23. So you don't think your vote will damage children in any way? The benefit cap is one that my party voted for at Westminster, and what I a lot of support for it here in Northern Ireland because the average wage is 23,000. This would be a gross pay. Have you got more work to do?
I think we all have more work to do, and I want to work with the Minister and the Department in order to ensure that the most vulnerable in Northern Ireland aren't affected.
And constructive contributions
very
we will
much
certainly
indeed.
welcome.
Thank you.